She is who she thinks she is, a mind-bending story. The mirror was cracked, its silver backing peeling away at the edges. Sarah stood before it, wrapped in a threadbare robe that had seen better days. Her eyes traced every line, every shadow on her face, searching for something she couldn't quite name. The voice in her head whispered, relentless and familiar. "You're not enough." It had been her constant companion for years, coloring every interaction, every decision. Sarah's alarm blared at 6 a.m., jarring her from fitful sleep. She silenced it with a practiced motion, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. Another day of pretending, of going through the motions. She moved through her morning routine like a ghost, barely tasting her coffee, barely feeling the water in the shower. On the train, she sat with headphones in, no music playing, watching the world rush by in a blur of gray and steel. At work, Sarah answered emails mechanically, nodded through meetings, and smiled just enough to keep questions at bay. Her cubicle was a perfect reflection of her inner world, bland, impersonal, devoid of life. When she returned home, the silence pressed in on her. She passed by her abandoned easel, brushes still clean, paints unopened. Her fingers grazed a canvas, but she pulled away, the voice in her head louder than ever. Sometimes the mind is the most dangerous place to live. Days blended into weeks, each one indistinguishable from the last. Sarah's world had shrunk to the size of her apartment, her cubicle, the space between her headphones. She was a shadow, barely there, barely real. But then, on a Tuesday that started like any other, something changed. A new mirror appeared in her hallway. Sarah didn't remember buying it, didn't remember hanging it, but there it was, ornate and gleaming. When she looked into it, her reflection seemed different, brighter somehow, more alive. She blinked, and for a moment, she saw herself as she used to be. Eyes bright with passion, smile wide and genuine. Her identity is the puzzle, her memories are the pieces. Sarah stumbled back, heart racing. The image lingered in her mind, refusing to fade. She found herself reaching for her sketchbook, fingers trembling as they closed around a pencil. The lines flowed onto the paper, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence. She drew herself as she had seen in that strange mirror, vibrant, alive, full of possibility. As the days passed, Sarah found herself drawn to that mirror again and again. Each time she looked, she saw a different version of herself. Sometimes older, sometimes younger, always more vivid than she felt in her daily life. She began to question everything she thought she knew about herself. She believes she knows herself, until the truth says otherwise. Sarah's coworkers noticed the change first. She spoke up in meetings, her ideas flowing with a confidence she hadn't felt in years. Her cubicle slowly transformed, splashes of color appearing as she pinned up sketches and paintings. The voice in her head grew quieter, drowned out by the sound of her own laughter, her own thoughts. At home, Sarah stood before the mysterious mirror, studying her reflection. She saw herself as she truly was, a tapestry of experiences, of potential, of contradictions. The woman who doubted herself and the woman who dared to dream big. The artist who had been silenced and the voice that refused to be quiet any longer. She realized then that she had always been all of these things. The mirror hadn't changed her. It had simply shown her what she had forgotten. Sarah was who she thought she was. And she was so much more. As she turned away from the mirror, Sarah caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of her eye. But when she looked back, she saw only her own reflection, smiling with a newfound understanding. She picked up her sketchbook and began to draw, pouring onto the page all the versions of herself she had rediscovered. The alarm buzzed at 6 a.m. Sarah woke with a start, her mind still swirling with vivid dreams. She looked around her room, half expecting to see the ornate mirror. But there was only the old, familiar one, its frame chipped, its glass slightly warped. She stood before it, wrapped in her worn robe. But this time, as she gazed at her reflection, she saw beyond the tired lines and slumped shoulders. She saw the spark in her eyes, the strength in her stance. She saw possibility. Sarah smiled at herself. A real smile, one that reached her eyes. She was who she thought she was. And today, she thought she was pretty amazing.